This is about the survival of the human race, a sign of the times, an analysis, and a commentary. Migration of monarch butterflies, shrinking, faltering under extreme weather and vanishing habitats. The yearly winter migration of monarch butterflies to a handful of forested Mexican mountains dwindled precipitously in December, continuing what scientists said was an increasingly alarming decline. The migrating population has become so small, perhaps 35 million, experts guess, that the prospects of its rebounding to levels seen even 5 years ago are diminishing. At worst, scientists said, a migration widely called one of the world's great natural spectacles is in danger of effectively vanishing. In other words, watch the monarch butterflies go away, and goodbye to the polar bears, lions and tigers, and the elephants, and many other creatures, both small and big. The Mexican government and the World Wildlife Fund has said that the span of forest inhabited by the overwintering monarchs has shrunk to a bare 1.65 acres, the equivalent of about 1¼ football fields. Not only is that a record low, but it is just 56% of last year's total, which was itself a record low. At their peak in 1996, the monarchs occupied nearly 45 acres of forest. The acreage covered by monarchs, which has been surveyed annually since 1993, is a rough proxy for the actual number of butterflies that survive the arduous migration to and from the mountains. A conservation biologist at the University of Minnesota, who has studied monarchs for decades, called the latest estimate shocking. This is the third straight year of steep declines, which I think is really scary, she said. This phenomenon, both the phenomenon of their migration and the phenomenon of so many individuals doing it, that's at risk. Mexico is the southern terminus of an age-old journey in which monarchs shuttle back and forth between far-flung summertime havens in Canada and the United States, and a single winter home in Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains. An internal compass guides the butterflies each fall to a small cluster of mountains where ideal temperatures and humidity allow them to rest, clinging to trees by the millions like brilliant orange capes until they begin the northward return trip each March. By some estimates, 1 billion or more monarchs once made the 2,500-mile-plus trip, breeding and dying along the route north, so that their descendants were actually the ones that completed the migration. The number of surviving butterflies has varied from year to year, sometimes wildly, but the decrease in the size of the migration in the last decade has been steep and generally steady. The latest drop is best explained by a 2-year stretch of bad weather, said Chip Taylor, a biologist at the University of Kansas who has studied the butterflies for decades. But while good weather may help the monarchs rebuild their numbers, the long-term problem, the steady shrinking of habitat along their migratory route, poses a far greater danger. The monarchs' migratory freeway runs through the Great Plains. As they flew north from Mexico in early 2012, Dr. Taylor said months of near-record heat sapped their endurance and skewed their migratory patterns in ways that limited their ability to reproduce. Last spring, he said, the opposite happened. Unusual springtime cold in Texas delayed the butterflies' northward migration, causing them to arrive late in areas where they would normally have bred weeks earlier. They have to arrive in the middle of a 40-day period to do really well, Dr. Taylor said. If they arrive too early, the population crashes, and if they arrive too late, the population crashes. A larger migration might have weathered the cold snap, but given their losses the previous year, the butterflies really didn't have the capacity to turn things around, he said. The loss of habitat is a far more daunting problem. Monarchs lay their eggs only on milkweed, and the patches of the plant have rapidly disappeared from the Great Plains over the last decade. As corn prices have risen, spurred in part by a government mandate to add ethanol to gasoline. Farmers have planted tens of millions of acres of idle land along the Monarch's path that once provided both milkweed and nectar. At the same time, growers have switched en masse to crops that are genetically engineered to tolerate herbicides. The increased use of herbicides has all but wiped out milkweed that once sprouted between rows of corn and soybean. As a result, Dr. Taylor said, the monarchs must travel farther and use more energy to find places to lay their eggs. With their body fat depleted, the butterflies lay fewer eggs or die before they have a chance to reproduce. The monarchs are but the most visible victims of the habitat loss. A wide variety of pollinators and other insects, including many that are beneficial to farmers, are also disappearing, along with the predators that feed on them. So again, in other words, watch as the monarch butterflies and many other creatures, both small and big, go away. And this too is another sign of the end of times, as we know them, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary changes, happenings, and events. It's also about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations. And that should be a very important question to ask. Revelation chapter 9. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. 3. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. 4. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those humans which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a human. 6. And in those days shall humans seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou should give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and should destroy them which destroy the earth. 19. And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings, and voices, and thunderings, and an earthquake, and great hail. Yes, it's time for the physical and spiritual manifestation of the book of Revelation. And all these are more signs.